Right then, let's go.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the 2-on-1 Powerchair Football podcast powered by MK Battery. And it's episode 50. 50 episodes, which is pretty crazy. When we started this, I don't think any of us really knew where it might go, but it's largely down to the people who listen, watch, share clips and messages, and support is the reason we are here. Big thank you as well to MK Battery, who power this podcast and have supported the show for most of that journey, stretching back to 2023. Their backing of Powerchair Football and what we're trying to do with the podcast has been hugely appreciated. And lastly, a thank you to every guest who's come on the show, giving up their time. A lot of the best conversations we've had have come from people being willing to sit down and share their experiences in the sport, and that's something we're incredibly grateful for. So with that in mind, episode 50, this podcast has explored many different things. We do things like Premiership and Championship recaps. We bring on individual guests, but we felt we needed to do something a little bit special to signify the occasion. So firstly, to introduce my guests, my regular co-host, Gregg Baxter. Gregg, how are you?
Afternoon, Ryan. Afternoon, everyone. I don't think I've been more excited to record an episode of the podcast than this one. Certainly in the build-up I was, although clicking record, I suddenly got very nervous, which will be all revealed very quickly, I'm sure.
I'm sure it will. And alongside him, the familiar voice of Charlie McLellan. Charlie, how are you?
I'm good. When you sent me the idea for this episode like 2 weeks ago, so I've had 2 weeks to stew on this, I thought, oh, great, this will be well easy, just pick the best player from each country and it'll be fine. And then I started to think about the potential ramifications, and then my brain nearly exploded, and I've been having sleepless nights ever since. So this is actually so difficult. Anyone who's watching this right now, just first of all, pause it for a second and think about who your draft would be, because I guarantee you've got 20 seconds of peace before your brain starts to like cloud over and you start to feel sad. So this is going to be stressful. This is going to be very stressful, but I am looking forward to it.
So to Charlie's point, we have got a World Powerchair Football draft. I think it's fair to say between the three of us, we have probably watched and commentated on as much live Powerchair Football as anyone on the planet across a number of domestic and international competitions. So hopefully that puts us in a fairly good position to give you a well-informed, balanced episode today. The concept is fairly simple. We're each going to build our own squads, picking the best talent in the world, and by the end we'll hopefully each have a team that we genuinely believe could win on the biggest stage. There will be picks that feel obvious, picks that are bold, and picks that naturally spark arguments. And knowing the three of us, there will definitely be a bit of gamesmanship is probably the sensible word I'd use along the way. And by the end of it, we're going to need you, the listeners, to decide who drafted best. So each of us will be drafting a squad made up of 6 players and a coach of what we believe are the ultimate Powerchair Football team. The draft will run in snake format to keep things fair. So the order for the first draft and the first round will be Charlie, then myself, then Gregg. And then it reverses for the next round. Gregg, then me, then Charlie. And it continues alternating like that throughout the draft. There are a couple of key squad rules that we have to adhere to. Each team must include a minimum of 3 PF1 players, so classification balance is important as the squad develops. We're also only allowing 1 player per nation per team, meaning that once you've selected a player from a particular country, you can't pick another from that same nation for your own squad. The other 2 are still free to choose from that nation should they wish. We've also been tasked with considering as best possible chemistry and balance, thinking about how certain players connect and click with others within their team. For each pick, The person will have the floor for a couple of minutes to explain their rationale, why they've chosen that player, how they see them fitting into the team, and how they complement the players already selected. After that, the other two can jump in, debate the pick, ask questions, challenge the thinking behind it, and generally put it under a microscope. The coach pick will come at the end, and that can be from any nation, irrelevant of if you've already got someone from that nationality already in your team. We will be keeping track of each other's selections as we go to make sure everything is balanced and compliant, Mr. Baxter. And hopefully by the time the episode launches, I'll have some graphics ready so people can see the squads visually alongside the episode. And from there, we'll put it to a public vote and let the community decide who voted best. Does that sound good, gentlemen?
Everything apart from being called out for potentially cheating. Where's that come from?
Oh, a bit of skullduggery is one of your attributes.
Blimey, right, okay. Yep, fine by me. The game's on, right? You're a marked man now.
And to Charlie's point, just to reiterate, you can almost slot yourself into this draft if you're listening, say where you would go based on our picks. And I'm hoping we can have some real fun with this in the future. So we do have plans to expand to maybe a Premiership and Championship draft. And I want to, if possible, have those episodes recorded live so we can have the public potentially collectively vote for a fourth player within the draft. But I digress for now. Let's start with player one. Potentially, depending on who the others pick, this is the player you want to build your entire squad around. The one player who defines how you want to play, the one you trust in big moments, the one that everyone else in your squad will be built around. The interesting thing about a draft like this is the strategy behind it. Do you simply take a player that best fits your style and identity, or do you go a little bit more tactical and take someone else you think the others will want for their squad? Because once a player is gone, they're gone. If someone takes your first choice player, your entire plan might have to change. So, Charlie, you are up first. Player one in the draft. Kick us off.
Oh, well, first of all, I thought that having the first pick would be easy, but I genuinely think this might be the most difficult pick of the draft because I am so rattled right now. But this is the player that I was going to pick the whole time. This is the player that I think any team in Powerchair Football would have to build their team around. There's no way. My next pick is pick 5. There is no way that this player will still be on the table when I get to that point, and I have to take them now. So with that said, with that in mind, my first pick is Momo Galami. I had to do it. It's just, he is a freak of nature in terms of his footballing ability is just ridiculous. The best player in the game. And yeah, there's just no disputing that. I'm not going to say where I'm going to play him, but he could play, I think we all agree, in any position, in any team. And yeah, he is my first pick. So Momo Galami is locked in on Team Chaz.
Yeah, absolutely no arguments there. If you hadn't have gone there, I would be sweeping in and taking Momo Galami, as I'm sure Gregg would as well. Every time I think there is a flaw that can be exploited, there is a potential for someone else to take that crown as the best player in the world, he just produces the performance needed to put his name right at the top. Whether that's World Cup finals, European Championship finals, what we saw in the Club World Cup with that moment of magic at the end, he is just the most ridiculous talent. And I would go as far as to say he is the best player that has ever graced the Powerchair football court. So a very sensible pick.
I really disliked Charlie giving it the big build-up of, oh, who's my first pick going to be? Oh, woe is my life, it's been so difficult. Obviously, he was going to pick Momo because I echo everything you've both just said. I was giving it the big, you won't be able to see this, obviously, people listening, but I was just going yawning and giving a lot of facial expressions. I knew Charlie was going to pick Momo. I knew when I volunteered to go in the third position that there was no chance that Momo was going to fall to me, because if Charlie had not picked him, Ryan was going to snap him up. There's nothing I can say that hasn't already been said. He just is the example and the standard that, if any team's got Mo in it, you are fearing for your safety as a goalkeeper.
Yeah, very, very nice indeed. So I'm obviously next in the draft, and beyond this point, it's the unknown for me because there was no world in which Charlie didn't pick Mohamed Galami as number one. So, with that in mind, and considering the rules that we are adhering to, I have to pick, for me, the only other world-class talent in that France team. So the option has to be Brian Weiss. And in truth, like Momo, Brian is a player who doesn't need a huge introduction. For many, he's right in that bracket of best player in the world. Some will always point to Momo, but plenty would argue that Brian's versatility and overall skill set puts him right at the top of our game. And it's hard to disagree to that. The versatility is exactly why I wanted him, because I'm very happy to slot Brian in as my first pivot and goalkeeper. Something we saw him do extremely effectively in Italy in the Nations Cup last year. Completely comfortable operating in that 4-out system, which I want my team to do. He supports attacks, but never at the expense of the defensive structure. He is a 2-time World Cup winner, and with France, he will be chasing that 3-peat in October. So it's hard to bet against him. The only difficulty that puts me in slightly is his classification. PF2, and as we've already said, you need a minimum of three PF1s, so that's something I have to be considerate of across the rest of the draft. But I'm very happy to pick Brian as my number one, and he slots in as my goalkeeper.
Yeah, I mean, it's about as good a pick as you can get when Momo's off the table. I obviously, I've got sort of the better pick for me because of the classification, as you mentioned. Momo being a 1 does give me more options, but yeah, I think it was another one where if you didn't pick Brian, he was just going to go. Like, there was no way he was making his way around. Gregg may shake his head, but he's just trying to not give it away to us. But yeah, I think easily Brian is the second choice in that French side. They are sort of such a strong partnership. The strongest anywhere in football, ideally you'd want both of them in the same team because they have that just telepathic connection, Momo and Brian. But on his own, Brian just dominates. I thought at the Club World Cup especially, he was just at another level, just ridiculous. So yeah, a great pick, Ryan.
Right, yeah, I can't disagree at all. I did wonder if you'd go England first and then...
Can I explain why I did it?
Yeah, go on.
So when it comes to England, I don't think it's unfair to say they have at least 5 or 6 world-class players. And I think if Charlie or yourself pick a certain English player, I will have no problems putting my chips in another corner because the England squad is packed. When it comes to France, I only think 2 of them are world class, and I don't want to dilute that term down. There's not many that fall into that world class bracket. Even with World Cup winners, I think only Brian and Momo are the ones that you could say are elite. So knowing that if I didn't pick Brian now, you would have picked him, and then I would have had to pick from kind of a lower bracket of French internationals to do them no disservice. So that's kind of my rationale. I also want to add that one thing that became very apparent to me when planning this draft is the lack of world-class goalkeepers, particularly when you're talking about those brave, attack-minded individuals that can operate in a 4-out system. So from what I've seen from commentating, there's potentially 4 or 5 in the world that can do it at the highest level. Stop pointing at yourself, Gregg. So locking that position down early with Brian, it eases that concern for me slightly.
So that was before we started, I said there was one thing you said that gave me a bit of a headache because I was so set in my strategy. And then you said, I think there's only originally you said one or two world-class keepers. So you clearly done a bit more of a depth thought, but that made me reassess my thinking. And go on.
I think there's probably one or two that can operate in a 4-out system in kind of a world-class nature. There is some very, very good goalkeepers, but they're more kind of the 1 and 3 system where they're more, they won't drive out of their box a great deal. But when it comes to the defensive stability and the shape, there is some world-class talents. But in my particular way of wanting to play, there's only a couple.
To your point about depth, I obviously now have the luxury of being able to pick any other French player I like, but I can now move them just far down my priority order. I'd have to pick them now until last pick if I wanted to. And I echo your opinion that England has more of a depth of quality than France. You've taken the two best French options as you probably should have done straight away and pick one and pick two. So I echo everything you said. Brian is just ridiculous. To me, I actually prefer Brian to Momo. It's slim. It's slim. It's very slim, but for me, it's just me and how I just view it, and the way that he plays for me is just out of this world. So I think Momo's classification for me would have still maybe pick one if I had picked one, but Brian is just exceptional.
On to your pick then, Greg, or your back-to-back picks. But let's go with your franchise player, or the one you want to get you started.
Yeah, where do I go now is a question, isn't it? Where do I go? Do I break the ground on England and go and now set a precedent for you guys in the next round, or do I venture off into different ventures? I'm going to break the ground on England, and I'm going. Yeah, Charlie's pulled an interesting face there, but I'm going to break the ground on England. I'm going to take who Ryan will say I think is the other world-class goalkeeper in a 4-out system. I'm locking in Chris Gordon.
No.
He's so annoyed as Charlie.
I'm fuming. I wanted Chris Gordon.
Yeah, can I just, you need to get that out because it just sounds like you're having a go at his pick more than you wanted to pick him for yourself.
Yeah, to be honest, I thought you were fuming with the fact I was picking Chris originally. Yeah, so I'm picking Chris Gordon. He is my franchise player. He's the one I'm building the team around. I think he is, alongside Brian, the other world-class goalkeeper in a 4-out system. I'm playing 4-out. We're playing football that beautiful way. He's got that tactical brain. He's a leader. He just wears it on his sleeve. He's a player that I know can drive the standard for everyone in this team. I'm planting my flag, Chris Gordon, in goal, second pivot, leader.
He's the pioneer, isn't he, of that brave, expansive goalkeeper. And if it wasn't for my pick falling second, like Charlie, I think I would have had to have gone with Chris. I almost flirted with the idea of Ethan Fisher because we've seen him at domestic level and know that he is kind of the heir to Chris's throne. But in terms of someone who's here now, tried, tested, world class, Chris is top of that list. And it's not just the qualities he brings within that role, it's everything else. I deem him one of the most versatile players in the world of Powerchair Football. We had a debate on a recent episode, Greg. If we was to clone a player 4 times, who comprises a really good squad? Chris is probably top of that list because no matter where you put him, he will do a solid job. I saw a goal he scored at the West Midlands Regional League at the weekend. So he can finish as well as he can do all the defensive dirty work. Not to mention, he's one of the finest Powerchair Football brains in the business. one of the best coaches in the business. So I can't disagree. And that's probably where my English pick would have landed if I didn't have the luxury of Brian Weiss.
Yeah, I was literally, there was probably a 3-day period last week where Chris was going to be my first pick of the draft. And then I bottled it and went Momo. But he is the most unique player in the world in terms of just like having that one position that nobody even gets close to him. Like, I think Brian's a good second pivot, but even he doesn't understand the role even half as much as Chris does. Like, you look at him and Momo, often got a bit gated at for example, the World Cup. Chris just drops off at the exact right moment, and just is such a good team player. And you do get that as well when we talk about sort of the chemistry and the makeup of the team personality wise too. Chris is such a tactical thinker, always talking, improves everyone around him constantly. Yeah, that is a really, really frustrating pick. I mean, I can't lie. I expected him to get picked, so I'm not too devastated, but I would have loved to have had him in my team, definitely.
Can I just say something that's become very apparent to me when assessing this draft and looking at kind of the powerhouses within Powerchair Football? You've got France at the top, England second, and then it's widely debated, but then you've probably got USA and Argentina comprising the top 4 nations in the world. Every other one of those, bar England, have been experimenting with their goalkeepers in the last 12, 18 months post World Cup in Sydney. They're trying to find that formula that allows them to create those overloads in attack. So we've seen Caleb Manzour brought in with Argentina. He's now a really important part of that puzzle. You've seen Jordan Dickey now starting to adorn that goalkeeper jersey for Tracy Mayr's team. And Brian Weiss was that goalkeeper, certainly in Italy. So all 3 of those other nations comprising in the top 4 are testing, are trialing, are trying to almost replicate what England and Chris Gordon do. And to Charlie's point, I don't think any of them have done it to the level of proficiency we've seen with England as of yet. But I can guarantee you they're all working on that in their respective countries in the lead up to Buenos Aires.
I like the fact Charlie said he's bottled it by picking Momo Delamy. That's a phrase you've never heard anyone say in their life.
I did offer you both the opportunity to slot into the draft where you wanted, knowing that pick 1 was always going to go Momo, but knowing that pick 1 would always mean you see several other players bypass you, because we all think very similarly. And I go back to what I said, we've probably watched more football than anyone, certainly in a live setting. We've seen these players up close, not just their technical or tactical ability, but their communication, their leadership, how they click and connect with others. And that's what makes it so difficult. But this is where it starts to get interesting, because I can already tell, as you've heard, Charlie wanted to go Chris, so he has to almost rethink, but hope that I don't get there first, or Gregg doesn't do further damage with his second pick, which he will now progress onto. So, but a really nice first round. Momo, Brian, and Chris isn't bad at all.
And this is why I was quite happy to just slip into the 3rd spot, knowing I had back-to-back picks, and knowing that obviously Momo and Brian are exceptional. I'm going to go first and second, but I've got Chris Gordon 3rd pick, and I can pick again now. I'm very happy indeed. Now, where I go with this pick, even I don't still know, to be honest. I'm still umming and ahhing. It's a toss of a coin for me here about which strategy I want to go down.
It's challenging, isn't it? Because when we're assessing the other teams, you've obviously got France that you said you can put on the back burner for now. You've got Team USA. On our podcast with Ethan, which you just mentioned, he had them being right up there as a consideration for the World Cup. You've got Argentina. And then it gets more interesting when you go down the list of the world ranking, so to speak, because there's more individual, singular talents rather than an abundance of picks. So it is difficult, but please proceed.
You've touched on it there with your little comment there about, as you go further down the list, there are more nations with singular players compared to the rest of them. And I've and ahed about where I'm going to go, but I think what I'm going to do is I need obviously Chris is a PF2.
Mm.
I do need some PF1s. I'm going to Scandinavia. I'm going Denmark.
Oh, he's got it.
I'm taking Tome Krarup with my next pick. And I hope I've just annoyed Ryan by taking that one. Because for me, he is the standout for Denmark. He just can play in the middle, out wide. He's obviously a PF1. His ability, we saw it in Italy. He was pretty much almost at times single-handedly carrying that Denmark team on his back. And I mean that with the greatest respect to the rest of Denmark, because there are some talented players there, but he is just a cut above. And he's settled into the English game, playing alongside Marcus Harris at Greenbank so well. He was in the standout. He was in the team of the weekend for game week 3 just on a couple of weeks ago. So I'm quite happy sliding him in there. And I'll tell you what, Chris Gordon, Toby Kraut, that is an excellent couple of first picks for me if I do say so myself.
So I didn't know where your first pick would land. I knew you'd avoid France because there was no urgency on you to pick a French player. I suspected you would try and get your pick of the bunch when it comes to England. And then I've kind of predicted as far. I didn't think you'd pick Chris, but then there was 2 players that I thought if you go one way, I'll go the other. And Toby was one of those options. A remarkable talent. With all due respect, the only one you would probably consider in a world draft when picking from Denmark. So that kind of takes them out of contention now, to do no disrespect to their other players, but he is just a bracket above, just like Brian and Momo are for France. Remarkable performances in Greenbank's recent Premiership weekend. And we've spoken to the Greenbank contingent. They want that title. And if they're going to have that title, he's going to play a very key role because obviously they're not favourites in anyone's mind. They've got ground to make up. They've played a few games more than those around them. But we know all of the top 4 or 5 teams have to meet within game weeks 4 or 5. He did have a lot of issues in Italy with his controller and his hands, and he also had that within game week 2 of the Premiership. But game week 3, there was no issues, and we saw how good he is. I think you showed me, Gregg, when he faked out Ed Common in game week 1 or 2 of the Premiership. It takes some level of deception to deceive Ed Common. He can do everything. He's almost like Momo in a way that he can play that defensive dribbling form of football, but if he needs to expand it, play that expansive passing football, he can do so.
Oof. Yeah, I am surprised that we've gone to Denmark this early, to be fair. Without sort of giving myself away, I think you're being quite harsh on the talents of their squad. I think there's a couple of other players that would easily do a job. But yeah, I think Toby is a great player. Toby is fantastic. As you said, we didn't get to see the best of him at the for Nations Cup. I don't think we saw the best of Denmark either. They really struggled in large periods. But at the World Cup, I think we saw the best of him. And in England now, this season, he's just smashing it. He has such a great understanding. He's such a clever player. He is very, very good, Torbjorn Krarup. And it's definitely someone that I would have picked later in the draft. But yeah, it's an interesting one. That sort of blows it wide open for me now.
It does blow it wide open, but when I said if you go one way, I'll go the other, Toby was second on my list. So you actually haven't picked the player I was dreaming to have in my squad. And
Comes to know where you're going here.
Anyone that knows me knows that I'm a massive fanboy of a particular player, and it gives me great pleasure to pick Valentino Zegarelli as my next pick. I feared he would be taken. He is an incredible player. Before the Sydney World Cup in 23, I'll admit I had very little knowledge of either Valentino himself nor the Argentina team as a whole. But watching him throughout that tournament, a tournament where he got MVP, it completely changed that. The passion, the aggression, the quality he brought to the court. He was one of the players that made me fall in love with that Argentina side. Following that, we got the chance to see him up close in the English National League with West Brom, which only reinforced my initial impression. He brought the level, the consistency over into the English game, which all three of us would say is world leading. The passion we saw when he was representing Tigres de Pacheco, particularly at the Club World Cup. He carries so much responsibility, and looking ahead to the World Cup with Argentina as the host nation, that there will be so much weight on his shoulders to help them deliver success, whatever that success may look like. But I am delighted to have Brian as my keeper, Valentino Zegarelli in the centre, and that is where he plays his best football. So with pleasure.
I have no qualms in saying Valentino was the other player I considered going in for there with my fourth pick. Obviously, we all kind of love Valentino. You are the Valentino fanboy. I'm in the club. I'm in the door. I'm through the door. I'm in the club. Don't get me wrong. We loved it in Sydney. He was just the passion. The passion is just unbelievable. Yeah, he's Argentina just through and through. And then he came over to play with West Brom. I was like, you know what? Do I reunite Chris and Valentino? Got a little bit of that chemistry. He just took to the English game like a duck to water, didn't he? And we were all just so excited and so overawed. I have no qualms with allowing you to have Valentino. That being said, but yeah, can't fault that pick whatsoever.
Before that, we spoke about the established top four that many would deem the leading nations in Powerchair football, and similarly to France and Denmark, Valentino's top of the list. And Argentina have a very talented squad, but I think he's in a bracket above the rest. I know we saw Javier Lopez in the Club World Cup was probably better in that competition than Valentino, and I've already mentioned Kleb Manzour as someone that I did consider drafting into the team, but I just think those two need a really good tournament to force themselves into that top conversation where Valentino is.
Yeah, well, I love Valentino. To be honest, Greg, I did think you'd pick him for the reason you mentioned as well, reuniting him and Chris. I think that was a very risky move from you, Greg, and I hope it comes back to bite you later on. But yeah, it's a great pick. He is such an obvious poster boy for Argentina and for the wider sport. Just such a good player, consistent. I think you're right, Ryan, that he probably didn't have the 2025 that he maybe will have wanted. I think part of that was, his fault. Part of that wasn't his fault in terms of, I think, like at the Club World Cup, we saw him really hampered by, for example, the contact threshold there. And in America, at Phoenix, I thought he played well. But I just think Argentina were very clearly halfway through a sort of a transitional period into that 4-out football. So I think next year, home World Cup, or this year, home World Cup, seeing him in front of those crowds is going to be like a really special moment for the sport. He's going to be one of the main characters at the World Cup, I think. And yeah, it's a very, very good pick. Very good pick, Ryan. Very good.
But I think you raise a very good point that he is allowed to thrive when the tolerance of contact is fairly high from the match officials. And we've seen his game completely shift on a pendulum from one side to the other, depending on how strict the referees are. And in the Club World Cup, as good as he and Tigres were, they were hampered massively with how strict the officiating was. I hope that when it comes to Argentina, that level of tolerance is fairly high, not least because it's in South America where they battle for every ball. But the officials would have learned from the Club World Cup and how not many teams or players or coaches overly appreciated how strict things were. So yeah, I don't think it's unfair to say that Argentina will have hopes of lifting that World Cup. However lofty that ambition is, hosting a competition and knowing that they can give a game to anyone in the world, as we've seen at club and country level, does mean that he has a very important 2026 ahead, and he will be the poster boy because he is the poster boy for Argentinian Powerchair football.
Yeah, I knew what I was doing. I knew what I was doing when I made my decision with the coin toss. I could live to regret it, but I'm quite happy with my team I'm little building over here. Thank you very much, Charlie.
Very, very nice. Well, it comes back to you, Charlie, and you've had to wait a little bit of time to pair Momo up with others, but now you get to go back to back. So your second pick, if you would please.
This is actually so hard. Like, this is ridiculous. I have no idea what I'm gonna do. Genuinely no idea. I need to work out in probably the next 10 seconds. But I've been thinking about it for the last 10 minutes, and I still have no idea. There are a couple of directions I could take this squad. The issue for me is classification as well, because I just checked my phone and realized that a player that I thought was a PF1 is not a PF1, which is also caused me a huge issue, a massive issue. This is really difficult. I think within these two picks, I'm going to have to break English soil, just because I think that's going to be the best for the squad building. But England do have an abundance of talents. The US is someone that, surprisingly, we've got to this stage and we still haven't had a player from the United States picked. I'm going to go to the United States, and I'm going to pick, for me, their absolute best player by a country mile. I think this player is like just so good. One of the best middle players in the world. I'm going for Riley Johnson. He's just so good. Like, he can play. He hasn't ever played in a double pivot team, really. I know they sort of experimented it with Jordan Dickey, but that wasn't even really a double pivot because they hardly passed to each other. It was more like, if Jordan could dribble the ball out, he'd do it, and if Riley could dribble the ball out, he'd do it. I'd love to see him play in a proper double pivot, because very rarely gets beaten in the dribble, very rarely just gets beaten at all. Got an incredible passing range, a brilliant finisher, just boundless energy, and he's another one who's a fantastic captain, fantastic leader, another great character to add to the squad. For me, is the no-brainer pick from the US squad.
Yeah, no opposition to that at all. Viewers and listeners won't necessarily see Gregg or I's reaction, but we was both kind of nodding. If you're going to go US, you're probably going Riley Johnson. When he was over last year, when Team USA had that joint camp with England at St George's Park, it wasn't his technical or tactical ability that really wowed me. It was his personality, his mentality, and I think that's instilled across everyone within Tracy Mayr's team. And he is a remarkable talent. And it'll be interesting to see what they're working on in training, whether they look to do that 4-out system. I don't suspect they will, but he developed that fantastic partnership with Jordan Dickey as kind of a central pairing. And if Team USA are going to travel to Argentina and be successful, and it's either France or Team USA it can be their third World Cup win, he will be central to that, I have no doubt.
Yeah, like Ryan says, as soon as you went, I'm going to the US, I deleted the name Riley Johnson from my list and moved swiftly on. Like it's a no-brainer first pick. The USA are a talented squad, but he is obviously their talisman, their focal point, the one they look to. So yeah, Charlie, I mean, it's quite a nasty first and second pivot combination there, isn't it? It's just a little bit saucy.
Yeah, it's very strong, very strong. And I picked it to be as such. So yeah, I'm pleased with that. I think that's the right pick. Obviously that he is a PF2, so that does sort of limit me slightly, but no, I think that was the right choice.
I assume that means you're playing Momo out wide.
Why would you assume anything of me, Ryan? You'll find out. I don't have to tell you yet, do I?
Just to clarify, at the end we will go through who are in our starting four, our subs, and kind of the positions to help people understand. But no, that's absolutely fine. But to Gregg's point, that is a very tasty couple of picks. That also requires the match officials to have a high tolerance of contact, because they are two players who do not give away the ball lightly. So Momo, Riley, who is joining them? Charlie?
Yeah, this is the really tough one. I sort of knew I'd go for Riley. The thing is, I have to think about balance in this team. That's very important. And I'm just gonna do it. I've been debating between 3 players. I've debated going to England. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not going to pick an English player in this round of the draft. I'm going to go and follow Ryan across to South America and get Eber Lopez. Now, this is a big pick for me because, firstly, I think Eber is easily, well, not easily, but is at Valentino's level, if not potentially on his day better than Valentino Zingarelli. He is such a good player. Like, he's really come into his own. The Club World Cup, there is no debate. He was Tigres de Pacheco's best player by a long way, and a lot of people said should have been in the conversation for player of the tournament. And then again at the America's Cup was 100% Argentina's best player, and it wouldn't surprise me if he's the same again next year at the World Cup. This year, I keep saying next year. This year at the World Cup, he is so good, like so good. I know he's a PF2, so that's now both PF2 slots in my starting lineup taken. But the good thing about Eber is he now plays in a double pivot with Valentino Zingarelli and is very, very good at it. It is his best position is centrally, not wide. It is centrally. He plays in the center a lot for Tigres de Pacheco, and Valentino often plays wide instead of him for them. And for Argentina, he is one of the 2 central players now. And interestingly, when they were switching to sort of a 3 and a 1, it was often Eber who stuck in the middle, and Valentino went out wide. So he is. I'll give you a clue. He is one of my central players, one of my double pivot that I am going to be playing. I am going to be playing 4-out football. Easy pick for me.
That's 3 central players then.
Is it?
Okay, no, very good pick. As I said a second ago, for the Club World Cup, Eber was the clear standout. We watched every single game of the competition, Charlie, together, and he was remarkable, whether it was from set piece, open play. One thing that is Valentino's downfall is his temperament. It's a positive and it's negative, and often he finds himself in a position where he's close to suspension, or suspension is a possibility for some key games. We saw that with Argentina in the 2023 World Cup. We saw it in the Club World Cup. I suspect that will carry over, especially when you're hosting a tournament as home nation. If and when that occurs, Eber steps up. He's got a very cool head, but don't be mistaken for that being any negative for his kind of aggression or his quality. And he did really announce himself in Paris last year, and I'm very excited to see him. Had Gregg gone Valentino, Eber the clear second pick without question. So fantastic.
Yeah, my mood has very quickly changed. I think in hindsight, with Charlie saying about his options with Denmark and Ryan going Valentino, I would think I probably should have taken Eber with my 4th pick. He was good. Charlie's ruined my team. I've got to adapt on the fly. I've got to adapt on the fly here. I'm in reverse very quickly. You've also opened the door for Ryan here by not going England straight away, and I'm worried about where he could go with a certain player from a certain team who's just got his shirt. But I'm just thinking, yeah, my team is going to have to be adapted rather quickly.
All right, I'll progress to my third. I don't think I'm going to go the way you suspect me to go because, as I've already alluded to, there is multiple world-class talents within England's team. So if Charlie goes on to pick a player that I want, I don't have too much issue shifting my momentum in another direction. And that is why I'm going to go for a rogue choice here. I'm looking at the list, and my pick for my 3 is Ruben Walls. So anyone who knows this young lad knows he is destined for the absolute top. For me, he's already one of the best young players on the planet, and it gives me pleasure to put him in my team. Not necessarily within a starting position. I'll have to work that out come draft's end, but there's probably no other talents from Northern Ireland you'd want to put in a world draft, but he's right in that bracket. What makes Ruben so impressive isn't just his technical ability. It's his maturity. It's his leadership that he brings to the court. He's already a senior Northern Ireland international. He's shown he can do it on the big stage. He's comfortable centrally or out wide, which gives the team he plays in a lot of flexibility with how they structure their attacks. He's a dead ball specialist, by the way, which adds another dimension to the team in those tight matches when you're looking to pick the lock. And he's a PF1. So I think he ticks all the boxes for me. And whilst I could have gone England and whilst I could have gone USA, they're still there for me. And there's an abundance of options potentially on the table. But when you're talking about Northern Ireland or any within that kind of bracket of international teams, he features fairly prominently.
It's a good job this isn't recorded live for video, isn't it? Because Charlie and Ryan would have seen mine. I'm fuming, absolutely fuming. Bearing in mind, if you listen to the last podcast, Ryan told me specifically, I cannot draft Ruben. Put the words out there on the podcast, and he's taken him this high. Oh, you've ruined everything, Ryan. Yeah, no, we're both very high in the Ruben Walls fan club. We are founding members. PF1 talent, passion galore. You can't speak hard enough of him. He was on my list, obviously. I'm fuming. I can't take him now. I'm having to do some serious thinking.
I have to say I'm very, very happy with the direction of my squad so far. What are your thoughts on my pick of Ruben, Charlie?
Yeah, very good, very good. Well done, well done. I had him on my list too. He was another one of those one player nations that you select. You've basically taken Northern Ireland off the table now. I mean, it's risky. It's risky to go with a player who maybe, is an impact sub this early on, but it's also very clever. I have very high opinions of Ruben. I think he's going to be a great talent. I hope that, we get to see him at major tournaments in the future. Obviously, it was a shame that, they couldn't get to the World Cup, fell short at, the final hurdle, but he'll be back and we will see him on that world stage 100%. And he's so talented. He could play in any position because he's got such a high technical ability. One of the things I love about him as well is his personality. The way he interacts with his teammates, the crowd, just everyone around the game. He loves the sport, and a very sensible pick, Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, if I was to play devil's advocate on my own pick, is when are we next going to see him in a top tier competition? Because Northern Ireland didn't qualify for the upcoming World Cup, they now have to await the next qualifying route to the Euros. I don't know when that will fall. I suspect in 2027, if the next Euros is 28 or 29. It's just the unknown. So I hope that back in Northern Ireland, he continues to work on his development so that when we next see him under kind of that international spotlight, he observes a similar trajectory we've seen from when I first saw him in Geneva back in 2022, I think, and also in Italy in 2025. You okay, Gregg?
No, my head's gone. My head is I'm all over the shop now. I'm scrambling it. boys. Can't
You're the one that was desperate to go third, so you could have that first back-to-back pick, and take nothing away from your incredible current pairing of Chris Gordon and Torbjorn Clarup. So, without further ado, let's go to your third.
Now, give me at least another half hour now to react and just get through it. Where am I going to go next is the question that remains to be seen by everyone, not least me at this point. I have some ideas in mind about how I'm going to react and shift the pieces around in my team.
Yeah.
The sensible thing you've done, Ryan, sorry to drag, is the fact that you can go England after me knowing I can't go England. And so by taking Ruben now,
I told you, it's gamesmanship. You have to play the strategy, and that's why I drafted out 5 or 6 different strategies in my head, but knowing that they're kind of all a little bit irrelevant, you have to play the opponents, and that being you two. So whilst I wanted certain players, I didn't lock in on certain positions beyond Brian at the 1. So yeah, I feel I'm in a very comfortable position, but please.
I genuinely don't have a clue where I'm going to go with this now.
You have to. This isn't a very good listen otherwise.
No, I know. I genuinely don't have a clue where I'm going to go with this. And I'm going to go a bit rogue, I think.
Nice.
I'm going to completely throw the cat amongst the pigeons. And I'm going to go to a team that we saw in Italy that qualified for the World Cup that isn't the hosts. I'm going Belgium here.
Okay.
And I'm taking Florian Lechantre with my next pick. I think for me, Belgium, you've got the choice of really 2 if you're going to go down the Belgium route with Ian Gent or Florian Lechantre. For me, I think we saw the impact he had in Paris last year and how well he was playing before they had the classification change halfway through. I think we saw the impact it had on the team as a whole when he wasn't able to play. And I think we've seen his adaptability in Italy to play in either out on the wing as he does for his club side, playing alongside the likes of Brian Weiss, but he could also play in as a goalkeeper in a 1-2 sort of pivot if I need him to. So I am quite happy locking him in, knowing I can plug and play him wherever I want to. I'm building a core of players that I can just, I've got puzzles and I've got to try and work out where I can switch it around to play people in different positions depending on the threat of other teams.
Yeah, a very nice pick. It was during that Club World Cup he showed his real quality. And I've said it on record on the podcast before, had he not been reclassified from a 1 to a 2 during that competition, which obviously severely hampered Grafto Villeneuve-Dask playing him with Slim Bouchetta and Brian Weiss as the other 2s in that squad, I think we would have seen Grafto lift the Club World Cup. I would put a lot of confidence in that. I felt even without them, they should have won the final. You add a world-class talent like Florian Lechantre to that mix. He's attacking firepower, remarkable talent. But it's just you've now locked up your 2s. They're slowly diminishing in terms of what's available. But a very nice pick, and I look forward to seeing him in Argentina. And if Belgium are going to have any success, he will be absolutely central to it. I have no doubt.
Yeah, very good. If Ryan hadn't taken Valentino, I think I would have knocked on Florian Lechantres' door after picking him. But classification has actually made this so difficult. I didn't think it would be as big of a factor as it is. Like I thought, there's so many good players on both. But actually, when you think about the need to. The issue is the positioning of players, like players in similar positions. It's an absolute nightmare. But yeah, good pick. Florian's very good. I agree with you, Ryan, that I think it was a massive turning point for Villeneuve, both in sort of the morale of, we're doing great, we're into the semi-finals. Oh no, one of our key players has been reclassified. I think that really hurt them, and also from sort of the perspective of the game itself. One thing I'd like to see more from Florian with Belgium is that attacking flair. I'd like to see him. I think he played a very defensive role for a lot of the EFA Cup in Italy. I'd like to see him really sort of show that attacking quality, because he is, in my opinion, his best position is out wide. I know he was playing in sort of a double pivot a lot of the time with Ilan Genç, but I think his best position is on the wing. And I hope that, I know that you obviously, with a squad like Belgium have, you've sort of got to work your best four out there in whatever way you can. But I'd like to see him in a wide position internationally, because I think that is by far his best place.
Yeah, completely agree with all of that. So nice pick, Greg. You've got Chris Gordon, Tourbillon Claret, and Florian Lechantre. Straight back into your fourth pick now. Who are you going to go for?
I was hoping you're not going to talk for a bit longer, to be honest, so I could have more time to wrap my head around where I'm going with this pick. Because if you can't work out already, I'm adapting on the fly here. It's being put together in my head as we speak. There's a couple of options I could do here. I obviously have France in my back pocket whenever I need to go to them, so I'll go to them at a later point. There's no real rush
Sure.
for me there. So I am torn between two at this point, and I'm torn between Italy and the United States.
Yeah, nice.
And I just don't know where to go. But think I'm going to go down the Italian route. I don't know if I do this. You could take a couple of players here, technically, but I think I'm going to lock down Simone Ranzato. I think we all fell in love with him in Italy. I wanted one of those players, we talked about passion, Ryan's got passion in bucket loads with Ruben and Valentino. I'm putting together a team that I think could gel really well together, have varying levels of composure and calmness with Chris, but that sort of fire of Simone Ranzato, he was just exceptional in Italy for the Nations Cup. Took everyone by surprise, as the whole Italian side did, especially Ryan and myself. He really galvanized that team. They gelled, he led them, and his quality was unbelievable. They've just clearly developed as a nation, clearly gone on to that next step. People will be surprised that I've gone England, Denmark, Belgium, Italy with my first four here. I'm dotting around.
Dotting around Europe, that is.
Yeah, dotting around Europe. I'm doing a European tour. All right, we're all going on the European tour. But I'm more than happy with the four I'm putting together and how it's all piecing together nicely.
I can't disagree with any of that. When you think of Italy, you think of Simone Ranzato, a remarkable talent. And what was even nicer for me, and probably you as well, Greg, we saw him in 22. We saw him in 23 when he was participating in kind of qualification events in the lead up to the Euros in 25. He wasn't half the player of what we saw in the for Nations Cup last year. That trajectory, that level of development is one of the most impressive I've ever seen. And to your point, it's not just his technical or tactical ability, it is that leadership. And that's why at the start, I said, I want you both to consider as best possible the balance, the chemistry, the leadership. And he does give you that. He is a remarkable talent. He's a remarkable person. And he was central to all of Italy's success and will be in Argentina this year.
Is he a PF1 or a PF2?
I believe he's a 1.
Oh my, I thought he was a 2. He was right up there on my list as well, Greg, to be fair. I was tempted to pick him. I think if I'd been in your position just then, I would have done the same thing with Simone. I think I don't know if any of you have been watching, but last week was the Italian Cup back at Lignano Sabbiadoro, and I watched quite a lot of it. For some reason, he was only there for like their first game and then left halfway through the tournament, but he was brilliant in the game I watched. He's a top player, like a really player, he's going to cause some. Him and Italy in general are going to cause some serious issues. I mean, you look at the infrastructure around Italy and the fact that they can put on tournaments like that it was the exact same level of streaming and setup as the Euros, which is just mental. The sport is booming in that country right now, and yeah, a good pick, very good pick.
I'm so glad Ryan's just comfort. Like I couldn't quite remember. I was leaning towards PF1, and I'm so glad Ryan seems to have just confirmed that for me.
No, confirmation. I have access to the match sheets from the for Nations Cup. He is one of 6 PF1s within that Italian squad, so they're very heavily weighted in that favour. So, no, fantastic pick. He's another one that has to kind of be very mindful of his temperament, of his aggression, because we did see it boil over at times in Italy, but that's when the passion comes out, and you wouldn't want to dilute that down at all. But I do know they took him off, I think, in their last game, the third place playoff, because a second yellow in that, the suspension would have carried over to Argentina. So they were very mindful of that. And that brings me back to mine. And this is when I can kind of relax a little bit, because a lot of my team's locked up. As we've already discussed, there is a plethora of options when you talk about USA, when you talk about England. Do I look to pick off another nation now to take that out of your considerations? That is the question, because I have an idea of where Charlie's going to go next. But I'm comfortable locking up my English pick now. And for that, it gives me great pleasure to choose Mr. Dan McLellan. For me, comfortably, one of the top 5 players in the world, and the player that England need to build their system around. He has intelligence, composure, technical quality that allows him to influence any game he's playing in. He is versatile. He can operate in different roles within a system, adapt to what a team needs. Many people will know him for his world-class attacking play out wide, but I actually think he's just as effective, if not better, when operating centrally, where he can dictate the game, have even greater influence on the team around him. We've said it so many times. What is remarkable to me is what he's achieved and where he's competed in, even at his relatively young age. He's won cups and trophies both domestically and on the continent. And I think he's competed in every major competition, both domestically and internationally available. On top of that, Dan is a PF1, which is an added bonus, which means I now have my 3 PF1s for my squad. And that he slots into a very nice, young, hungry squad, versatile squad. And just looking at it, I think I can play any of my current 4 players in any of the 4 positions, and they would do a fairly solid job. So with great pleasure, I will pick Dan McLellan. What are your thoughts, gents?
I think you've definitely got the most versatile squad looking at it now. In terms of, you are right, like Dan, I watch him obviously play a lot, and especially, at regionals and stuff, when John Balding can't make it for whatever reason, he often plays centrally, and it's becoming a real string to his bow. I think it's a very good squad. I think him and you've done well to pick sort of a good partner for Ruben as well. I think him and Ruben would get on really well. I think they'd have a good relationship, and we did say chemistry was important. So yeah, no, I think that's a pretty solid pick, and yeah, I'm still interested to see what you're going to do with the other 2. But I don't think your squad is quite as locked in as you maybe think it is, Ryan, based on what I know what I'm going to do next. But yeah, I think that's a very good pick.
Well, to answer that, I think my next pick probably does go to the States. So it's that last pick that I'm going to have to think about now and really think about how that works together. But just on Dan, I have to figure out what system I'm playing in, but I have no hesitation playing him in the centre with the captain's armband on him. And when you consider Ruben, Brian, Valentino, they can all play there. It's a very similar situation to yourself, Charlie, that you've got three potential world-class, world-leading central players. It's just about the system, because we're going to have to give that rationale at the end as well, that supports and supplements the teams on a piece of paper.
See, I was adamant you were going to go down the Dylan Kelso route. The entire time I was adamant you were going to go down the Dylan Kelso route.
So I actually owe Charlie that thank you, because I appreciate his integrity not to pick his brother. But judging by his reaction, I don't think that was ever quite an option. Had Dan McLellan been off the table, Dylan for me would be the clear second choice.
Yeah, you're building a solid squad there. I think we're all building solid squads here. I mean, this is some quality Powerchair football games we guarantee, regardless of where we end up going in the next few picks. But yeah, you've got a fluid, young, passionate team led by Brian Weiss. It's looking good. Yeah, were you ever going to pick now?
Nah. He's first of all, I just wouldn't give it. I'm seeing him this weekend for my birthday. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction of him being I wouldn't give him that. But no, my heart and mind were elsewhere for this one, and I have a free shot at England now, which is unbelievable. I've actually played a blinder. You're not going to believe me, but right now, my dream squad that I'd written down before the start of this even began, I am going to finish with 5 out of the 6 players that I had written down, which is pretty crazy. So yeah, I'm very pleased.
I'm in a very similar position, and judging by Gregg's reaction, it couldn't be further from that reality. But just to the point of picking Dan and asking Charlie if he would pick Dan, I very much suspected that you would go with one of your Teesside teammates, either Tyler Reeve or Ed Common, for your pick, Gregg.
Yeah, this could be an interesting one to explain at training. I'm not gonna lie. We've got regionals on Sunday, and I'm gonna have to go. Yeah, you know what? Sorry, boys.
How many times have we said it on the podcast? You need to balance your Teesside affiliations with your journalistic integrity, and that's what you've done. Charlie, your 4th pick.
Do I get back-to-back picks now, right?
You get back-to-back picks.
Right. Well, this is me. I'm going to call this section the subs bench. This is me naming my 2 players that are going to be on the bench for me. I'm saving England for the last one because I do not need to, I've got all the time in the world to pick from the abundance of quality wingers that I can choose from. Although I do know who I'm going to go for. My subs bench consists of 2 players, one PF2, one PF1, one player that I bring on centrally, one player that I would bring on the wing. So I've got an option to bring on a PF2 for either Riley Johnson or Rebel Lopez, who are going to be my double pivot, or I can bring on the other guy for one of my wingers. And my first pick is a Belgian. My central player, who I'm going to be bringing on off the bench, is Villeneuve's Ilan Genç. What a pick. That is honestly unbelievable from me. I think he is quality. He was great at the EFA Nations Cup, and he's only going to be better at the World Cup because he is now playing his club football with Villeneuve in France. I think him and Brian are playing quite a bit as a central partnership, which, I'm surprised maybe you didn't go down that route, to be honest, Ryan. I was surprised by that. But yeah, a fantastic player, and a pick I'm very, very pleased with.
Really? Can't tell. Blimey.
Yeah, I first watched Ilan Genç in 2022, the EFA Cup, where Belgium were crowned champions and earned their ticket to the eventual 2025 EFA Nations Cup. Was the clear standout in that tournament, a tournament that had the likes of Germany, the likes of Scotland, Spain, and others. He was remarkable then, and that level carried over into 2025 in the EFA Nations Cup. One thing that frustrated me slightly was, I think you've touched on it, the lack of maybe bravery or attacking intent from Belgium, which means we don't necessarily see Ilan performing as well as he potentially could. So, but with you as manager and the clear mandate to be attacking, to be expressive, I would be very excited to see Ilan Genç in that system.
Yeah.
Can't fault the
He's got it in his locker, doesn't he? I think we've seen just for the passing range, the quality. He's got that completely in his locker.
That is your third PF2. You've said that, haven't you?
Yeah, I know. My next two picks will both be PF1s. And that's pretty simple for me.
Someone humble. Can someone humble this man quick, please?
Well,
He's on the cloud 9 right now.
we won't be able to do it for a little bit longer because Charlie has the pleasure of going back to back now. So Momo Galame, Riley Johnson, Heber Lopez, and Ilian Gench. Who is joining them, Charlie?
Now, what do you want to bring on to change a game from the subs bench, especially in wide areas? You want to bring on something a little bit different, something a little bit unorthodox, maybe someone with a unique skill set that's going to unlock a game. And my player is someone that Ryan and I reference a lot, like probably more than any other non-English player in the National League. And Ryan is furious right now because he knows who I'm going for. My wide player is from Uruguay, and that is the sensational, fascinating to watch Marco Diaz, who is a PF1. He's going to be coming on the wing, rotating in and out. Fantastic player, unorthodox striking technique, scored some of my favorite goals I've ever commentated on just because of that technique. And yeah, that is a very, very solid bench, I think. Genk and Diaz as my options to bring on.
A ridiculous talent, and so excited to see him in Buenos Aires later this year. The unorthodox nature in which he engages balls and supports in attack, it's ridiculous. You expect him to go one way, he goes the other, but never at the detriment of the success rate. And we clipped multiple goals from that Club World Cup last year with Club Nacional. And yeah, to Charlie's point, we often say, "Oh, he's Marco Diaz." That is so Marcos Diaz-esque. Brilliant pick. I did think you were going to go Francisco Wilde. I have to say, because you are a huge fanboy, but looking at your system and how they're more weighted to the centre, this is that out and out attacker. That wide player who's just going to hug the touchline and hover around the edge of the box.
He's also a PF2, Francisco Wilde, which I didn't realise, but he's a PF2, which obviously would be an absolute nightmare for me classification-wise. To be honest, even if he was a 1, or I did have the capacity for a 2, I think based on the kind of football we're going to be playing, having someone as exciting as Marco Diaz on the wing is going to be just perfect for that brand of, it's going to be just electric to watch. And Marco Diaz is one of those players that always gets you excited when you watch him play. So yeah, for me, that's the pick that I think makes the most sense right now. I think potentially that pick there may have been a Ranzato shout within these two picks if Gregg hadn't taken him. Ruben Walls was another one that was, on the same sort of thing as Marco Diaz. It was going to be Diaz or Walls, Ranzato or Gench was my sort of bench. So that, I think that's a pretty solid. And I'm as Gregg says, I'm very pleased with myself because I now have, the freedom of England to pick my final winger, and then my squad is complete.
Yeah, I'm a little bit like, you have got the freedom of England for your last pick, which is quite disgusting, to be honest. Thinking about it, it's quite worrying for someone that's thinking about your squad and me again. But yeah, I'll admit you deserve to be feeling maybe not quite as confident as you might admit it, but maybe halfway there, Charles. I'll give you that. It's a quality squad you've done.
That's the first time beyond Momo Galame as the first pick, which I always predicted that someone has taken another one on my list. So he was very much in my consideration as one of those players coming off the bench to influence games, to be unorthodox, to be unpredictable. So no, good pick. First time I've been on the back foot slightly.
He said stalling for time.
Do you know what? I am stalling for time now, and I kind of know where my US pick is going to go, and I've got a couple of options. So it's, do I leave them for now knowing that you still have someone to pick from the US should you opt to go in that direction, or do I try and pluck a talent from elsewhere? Now, I've already said that all of my 4 players are probably play their best football in the centre. Obviously, Dan McLellan predominantly out wide, but I'd love to see him play more centrally going forward, and I would have no opposition to playing him there in my team. So, whilst they can all do very good jobs, world-class jobs out wide, I haven't got any out-and-out wingers, the ones that it is their craft. And I still don't know where I'm going to land. I'm going to have to go with my US pick now, and then desperately try and think about what direction I take it in. And I don't think either of you two would go in this direction, but my US player is Lexi here. I've said it on the commentary and the podcast many times. She's one of my favourite players. She is an out-and-out attacking player. She is aggressive. She is one of the top goal scorers in Team US history. I think just behind Riley and Jordan. She averages, I think, a goal every other game. She's done it in the biggest competitions. I did think about Pete Winslow, but I need players that are versatile, that have many strings to their bow. Not to say that he doesn't, but what I like about Lexi is she doesn't shy away from the physical side of the game as well. And I'm looking at my opposition: Riley Johnson, Momo Galame, Torbjorn Claret, Chris Gordon. There's going to be some wars in and amongst those teams if they were to ever meet one another. So yeah, it's as much about personality and mentality as it is anything else. And she's also another PF1, so I'm very heavily weighted, more so than I need to be, for PF1 classifications. But very happy to put her in my team. And I did very much consider the 2 new recruits for Tracy Mayr's side in David Dowling and Michael Rayton, who were spectacular, by the way, in the America's Cup. And if we was to record this podcast after Buenos Aires, I would probably change my pick. But I think they just need a real major under their belts to put themselves in that upper echelon of world-class players.
Yeah, for me, I'm shocked that you haven't gone David Dowling. I think looking at your squad, I think that would have been a great pick. I think Lexi's a great player, and she's a goal scorer, as you mentioned, and you've got enough sort of creativity in that team with Brian, Valentino, and Dan as your sort of other 3, that you'll probably be fine just having anyone who can finish on the back post. And Lexi can do a lot more than that. Very talented. David, for me, is probably slipped through the net there, maybe. I think, that joint camp with England and US, a lot of the England players came away saying, yeah, Riley Johnson's a crazy player, but oh my God, David Dowling, I didn't realise. And when you watch him in the US as well, like for his club team, he carries that team on his back like nothing. It's ridiculous. He's one of the best technical players. He's really going to burst onto the scene, I think, in the next sort of year. A lot of people are familiar with him, but I see him as one of the players that, I've got my stocks firmly invested in for 2026. He'll be at that World Cup. He'll probably be a starter for the US. I mean, they do weird things with team selection in the US. I would never be able to select who's going to start a big game for the United States at the minute, because just about when you think you figured out who their best 4 is, they play one of the other ones and they play really well. So yeah, it's tough, but David is a great pick, and I think between Pete and David, Gregg has got some very, very good options there.
I don't disagree at all, and that's why I wanted to preface it and caveat it with that experience element. And again, if we was to do this draft in 8 months' time, I'm almost certain he would feature prominently at the top of most of our drafts if we was to be in the prominent picks. I just haven't seen it enough in a live setting, and that's the reason why. But take nothing away from his level. To your point, Charlie, most of the England squad were going, this kid is special. And judging by the smile on Baxter's face, I suspect that he's going to go in that direction. But I wouldn't be surprised if you go for a Jordan Dickey, a Zach Dickey. As we record this yesterday, they announced that Michael Archer was back in the national team setup. So there's so many elements to it, and it is so unpredictable. I think there's something in the running game with Man City, Pep Roulette or Pep Bingo, trying to guess the Man City squad. It's very similar with Team USA as well. You don't know how they're going to line up on any given game.
Yeah, I didn't consider Lexi here, not because she's not a good player, but purely because I know how high Ryan is on her, to the point where I was like, you know what? One, I don't want to see Ryan cry. Two, he's probably not going to fall to me at some point where I'm considering where I'm going to take her. She is quality. We saw that in Sydney, especially. But yeah, I now, with my next two picks, have the freedom of USA and France to go in whatever direction I want to go in.
You certainly do. So who is joining Chris Gordon, Tourbillon Claret, Florine Lechantre, and Simone Ranzato?
So I need one more PF1.
At least within your squad, yes.
Yeah, I need one more PF1. And I'm going to go France first to allow me to have more time to think about where I'm going with the US, because I think that's more of a headache for me than I think France is. And I'm going for a player that may raise eyebrows, maybe from Charlie, but from Italy was one that I couldn't stop raving about. And that's Aurelien Filatre. I'm locking it. He's my PF1. Aurelien Filatre was nothing short of a joke in Italy. He just, whenever he played, obviously all the spotlight is going to be on Momo and Brian. And we saw it especially when they came out and played 1-2 pivot. But Aurelien Filatre was just exquisite. His goal scoring was ridiculous. The amount of assists he generated for other players tapping at the far post, his ability to spin on the ball, the power he generates. I just think he gives me so many more options in and around, especially when I'm playing him on the wing. But I would feel comfortable if I needed to. We're rotating in a sort of game situation. I'm not sitting there thinking, oh, Aurelien's playing in the middle. Whoa, no, but we're in a bit of trouble here. Can we rotate and get round? I like to build a squad that, is fluid. Like Ryan said, building players that can play in any situation. And to be able to get him at this late stage, knowing that Brian and Momo were going to be, if we're going to be the top two French picks, and probably the first two picks of the draft, I knew I could save Aurelien Filatre for this pick at the end. And I'm more than happy to slot him in.
Yeah, when we dissected the for Nations Cup, we said, for our benefit and the listeners' benefit, let's take Momo Galame out of the conversation, because any given competition, he is the MVP. It's clear. He's a level above anyone else on the planet. That's why Charlie picked him first. That's why Gregg and I were gutted we couldn't put him in our teams. You spoke about Simone Ranzato's impact, and I think that was slightly influenced by the shock, the story of Italy coming and surprising everyone to take one of those valuable World Cup tickets. With those two things in mind, Aurelien was the MVP for me in the for Nations Cup, clearly. And you talk about versatility. He played in each of the four positions across the competition. When he was first pivot and goalkeeper, he was comfortable, he was confident, he was brave. When he was attacking and out wide, he was the best winger of the competition. And centrally, he had a beautiful relationship with Momo Galame. No problems with that at all. And again, he's the clear third pick when you consider that France squad. And I knew straight away, once Momo had gone, once Brian had gone, there was only one player that would have your backing in France, and that's Aurelien Filatre.
Yeah, you said you were expecting eyebrow raises from me, Gregg, but my eyebrows are firmly planted. They remain unmoved, unwavered, because I agree with you. And my piece of paper under the France heading says Momo, Brian, Filatre as my top three. So I cannot knock that pick. I think he is ahead of Tristan Lebelair, but I think that they both have very similar skill sets. They're very similar players. I think on either side for France, you do sort of automatically fall into a supporting role, unfortunately, when you play for the French national team, because of what you've got in the middle in Momo and Brian. but every time he was given the ball out wide, he made a chance out of it. Brilliant player, and yeah, I think the obvious pick. So very well done, and I'm really interested now to see what you're going to do. You've got a very, very versatile squad as well, because you've got Chris, Torbjorn, Simone Ranzato, who can play in the centre. Florian Lechantre can also play in the centre. Or are you going to go Lechantre and Filatra on the wings? Are you going to... I'm not going to give you the idea, but I know what I'd do with this last pick, and I'll tell you after you've made your decision. That it's a really interesting one.
It really is.
Fantastic, because I don't have a clue. So Charlie's going to make the pick for me, and we'll wrap it up there, shall we? Right. For me, I'm going to venture outside of Europe. Well, hey,
Nice.
happy days. I'm gonna leave the comfort of the continent that I live in, and I'm gonna go to the US, because I feel like I can't build a world draft without including a US player. And I've narrowed it down to 2, with an honorable mention to Michael Rayton, because when I played against him last year, he, obviously not knowing who he was or what happened, what was going to happen, he was sensational for me. I'm toying between Pete Winslow and David Dowling, and I still don't know where to go with this one. Do I want the set piece prowess of Pete Winslow, just give me that option off the bench, or do I want to go David Dowling and go, what, you know what, I'm locking in a really versatile 6, which gives me options, but almost could I have the pep roulette issue and have too many options? I think I'm going to just stick with my plan of versatility. And given how much the England boys were raving for me, and they're shaking heads here, which you can't see, listeners, I'm gonna lock in David Dowling for me. I'm going on pure potential. For me, is what I'm going with.
For me, that is the
Wrong
wrong
answer.
decision.
That is
Yeah.
the wrong answer. Looking at your squad, that is crying out for Pete Winslow.
I completely agree.
You are welcome to disagree. I'm quite happy with having the ability to plug and play any of my 6 in any position I choose to and want and can do. I think we're so fluid that we can adapt to whatever position we find ourselves in the game.
I think the issue for me, I mean, there's no issue with your squad. You are correct. It's a very good squad. Like, let's not. I went, but not because David Dowling is like a horrendous player. People know how great I think David Dowling is. For me, I just think we've all sort of got a box of tricks on our bench. I've got Marco Diaz. Ryan's still got 2 picks to go, but knowing Ryan, oh no, 1 pick to go, but knowing Ryan, he's gonna pick someone interesting for the last pick. And Ruben, I think, is a bit of a box of tricks in himself. I've got Diaz, as I said. Having Pete Winslow to do what the Americans did at the World Cup, which is to just sub him on to take set pieces every now and again, even if he's not going to be part of that sort of starting 4. Having him as an option on the bench, the set piece prowess, and you've mentioned how intelligent of a squad you've got with Chris and Toby and Filatra. Those are fantastic players that will be able to understand and be in the exact right place to meet those Pete Winslow set piece deliveries pretty much every time, and they all have the skill as well to sort of execute those amazing American routines. For me, Winslow is what I would have gone for. I understand why you've gone Dowling, because I think he does make your squad sort of like more well-rounded. But I think if we're thinking about tournament play, having Pete Winslow up your sleeve to bring on and give those just pile driving deliveries into the box would be a bit of a cheat code.
Ryan, do you want to jump on before I have my right of defence?
I echo everything that Charlie said. I just think, looking at the balance of your squad, it's crying out for that dead ball specialist. Not to say that none of them players that you currently have can't do a good job there, And we've spoken about how high David Dowling's ceiling is, and he has the potential to come away from Argentina as one of the best players in the world. There's no doubt about the level and the trajectory he's on, but he's not quite there yet. And Pete Winslow is tried, it's tested, and he has an attribute that no other player on the planet has in that world-class delivery. We've seen players get close to it. I think I'd be interested to hear your boys' thoughts in terms of those dead ball specialists. I've only really seen Noel Zeren for Upsilon Shatney Malabry have that technique and that laser accuracy that still is paired with the power. And I'm not saying that there isn't other world-class dead ball specialists, but those two are the only ones that I can think of that can generate that much power and accuracy in tandem. And I think if you used to add him to the mix, it would have been a very nice pick. But David Dowling was on my list, and he was very much a consideration. I just opted for experience over raw talent and raw potential.
Don't get me wrong, this was a coin toss. I said before that I had two avenues to go down. I could go down the Pete Winslow route of, set pieces and bring them on and give you guys, your managers, some sort of like headache to think, oh, what happens if he brings him on? For me, I just wanted to go for someone that has that raw talent, has the upside. I mean, if we're playing Football Manager and we're planning for years gone by, I mean, I've got a team that's going to develop, especially with Chris and Toby. I know we're not. I've got a mix of experience with Chris and Toby, and they can be the sort of experienced head to just bring on David. I like how, again, I mentioned it, my key word for this draft was versatility. I want options. If someone, like, say, if we're taking this to a tournament, right, and one player drops out because they've got a chair issue or an illness, I don't want to be sat thinking, "Oh, there goes my centre player, or there goes my star winger." I want to look at my team and go, "Look, we're fine. We are able to adapt." And I think I've got the ability to adapt in game to whatever situation. I can turn to whoever I've got on my bench and whoever starts and go, "We're going to give these a good game." So I know how highly, like you say, you both said, the England boys were raving about him last summer. He, for me, his personality as well, it's a personality pick as well. He loves to get at football. He is, as all the American team are, they were vocal, they were loud, but he just seemed to enjoy every single minute of when they were over at SGP last summer. He was thriving, and I'm more than happy to lock him in as my last and final pick.
Intrigued to see how the American Nationals go in a couple of months' time, because the spotlight will be on him there, and hoping that the three of us will be traveling to Argentina for the World Cup. It would be great to get together before to do a predictions episode, players to watch, ones that people need to be casting their eyes on. David Dowling's going to be in that, and as are the rest of your squad for that matter, because all of them have qualified, and I'm the only one currently that has a non-World Cup competing player in Ruben Walls, but that is raw talent and raw potential. So it comes to my sixth pick, and I have freedom here because Charlie is inevitably going to go England. So I can almost talk you through my line of thought when I'm looking at the nations that compete within Powerchair Football. So Uruguay has been locked off. As I've already said, my players, for the most part, are best playing centrally. I've got Lexi and I've got Dan that can be my wide players, but I think I still need another wide player. And when you look at the nations, I'm immediately drawn to Italy because of what we saw them do in the EFA Nations Cup last year. But with Italy, it's a funny one, because I need to see them do it at an away tournament. I don't know if they was riding this incredible wave of momentum, of the atmosphere. So Argentina will be the real acid test and the barometer for me to see how good they actually are. So straight away, as you've picked Simone Ranzato, I'm drawn towards Giovanni Bernabé Capra. He's not my pick just yet. remarkable development. Obviously, we know him well from his commentary quality. We didn't really know how good a player he was because he lives in France. He got his citizenship with Italy a couple of months prior to the competition taking place, and he was the complete unknown. He took England by surprise. He took other opponents by surprise that they had to adapt to. But now I'm intrigued to see how Italy fare, because the other 9 nations have that footage, can study it, can look at the tendencies, the formations, the things that make Italy perform well, and look to nullify them. So intrigued with that. I'm looking at Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, and I'm looking at Naglismont Villas, PF1. I've said it many times, a world-class wide player. But similar to Ruben Walls, when are we next going to see him in that Ireland shirt in a prominent competition? We don't know. Obviously, we have the luxury of seeing him in the English National League, but he's playing his football in the centre, which is hurting that momentum out wide. And then I'm going down the list even to Scotland, and I'm genuinely considering Tyler McLellan. And this is based off multiple factors, not only because he is clearly the standout player for Scotland. It's the versatility, it's the distribution, it's the dead ball quality, and we've seen him do it in the English National League Championship now. So I know that he can really rise to the level needed. So it's between those 3 for me, because I don't know. And then, to be honest, none of us have once considered Australia. And whilst it's really hard to judge the APO zone because it's so isolated, the quality is far more dispersed than it is in Europe or the Americas. But I was really impressed with Beck Evans and Santo Bongiovanni at the recent APO Cup. So they would be considerations as well. So I've just talked, and you can see I'm doing the Gregg Baxter and delaying it. I am going to go with Giovanni Bonabé-Capra. I think he has that dead ball specialism. He is a personality. He is a quality player. There's no question about that. And I think I have him on my bench, ready to come on if I need. I need a little bit of quality, power, pace, passion, and as someone that has affiliations to Italy, it would be remiss of me not to have an Italian within my squad. So I'm happy to have Giovanni Bonabé-Capra as my 6.
We'll wake up now, shall we, Charlie? After Ryan's just gone on his little storming ramble there, shall we?
I liked it. I liked it. I thought it was good, although it was when he went back to the first player he mentioned. Yeah, I think, listen, you've not got a huge amount of ways you can go with this. It was quite obvious to me that you have to pick from one of those nations. I thought maybe you might go for like one of the Danish wide players, like a corner up Sorensen or someone like that. I thought there was a chance of that, but no, I think that does make sense. Mindrew is also a decent shout from an Italian perspective. I think he's a good player as well. Probably deserves an honourable mention. But yeah, Gio, I first met Gio back in 2024 at the for Champions Cup, and did the commentary with him, and he was sat in his suit singing opera down the mic at me, and I, to be honest, didn't even know to what extent he played Powerchair football. And then to see him going to Italy to represent the Italians, I thought, oh, that's going to be great. And then he turned out to be a really good player, so I was quite surprised by that. And yeah, I think it's a good pick. Gives you flexibility. I think you've probably got the squad. Well, no, actually, mine's quite a lot, but definitely more than Gregg's. I can sort of pick your starting 4 instantly. Whereas with Gregg's, I think there is sort of second thought that goes into it. Yeah, you've also got then, as I said, in Walls and Giovanni Bonabé-Capra, good options on the bench. And although you don't have a central player on the bench, really, you've got Dan McLellan, who can just fill in there, and then one of the wingers can come on and play wide. So yeah, I think you've rounded out your score quite well there.
Yeah, and to mention that all of them speak fluent English. So, I mean, Brian's English is better than he probably lets on. But I'm looking at some of the issues that your coaches will have conveying messages across the squad, and I think I'm in a good place. But no, jokes aside, I think it is a nicely balanced squad, and in hindsight, I may have gone in a different direction on certain elements, but for the most part, really happy.
Yeah, I thought you might go Mindru for Italy. I just, again, sort of that player that doesn't mind doing the dirty work on the edge of the box whatsoever. Not that Giovanni doesn't. I just thought perhaps that might sway you towards Mindru. You're going through your full process. Napoli's crossed my mind for Ireland.
Yeah.
Matt Crowley crossed my mind for Ireland actually as well. Given what we saw in Italy as a goalkeeper who could play 4 out, it was just maybe one for the future to watch, perhaps more than anything. But I have absolutely no issues with you picking Giovanni. Your squad, yeah, like Charlie says, I think you've got a definite starting 4 with options on the bench. But it's a strong squad. And one thing with Giovanni, like Charlie says, you know he's going to nail that initiation sub.
The issue I have, well, if this draft had been 7 or 8 players, then these sorts of lines of thought would have propped up. Then I would have tackled maybe, do I need a second goalkeeper, someone who can fill in there? Because with all due respect to my players, I think Brian's the only one that can operate in that first pivot and goalkeeper, and he hasn't done that exclusively. That's a new thing. So that immediately is potential flaw in my squad when the listeners are looking to pick holes. But yeah, no, I'm happy. Charlie, on to your 6th and final pick. It's got to come from England, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's going to be an English wide player. I don't think there's any secret about that. And this is such a lovely position to be in. Like, I really do have such a nice final pick. Like Gregg did with France, I've got my turn with England. I'll talk you through the logic because in my mind, there are 3 names that could be selected. And then one of those 3 stands out to me quite heavily. I'll talk you through the honourable mentions first. Starting off with Ed Coleman, I think he is the magician. He is one of the best wide players this sport has ever seen. He'll mask, his intentions so well. He's always performs in big games, like sometimes he's taken well to grow into tournaments, but late into tournaments he always comes into his own, which will be great for my side because there's no way I'm not making the final of whatever tournament this is competing in. I think he would be a good choice, and player of the season in the Premiership last year, deservedly so, and there's a good chance he will win it again this season. Then you've got the maverick that is Marcus Harrison, who is just such a nightmare to try and compete against.
Your squad needs a lot of things. Marcus Harrison is not one of them. You've got enough grit and housery there for a whole competition, for a whole domestic season.
Yeah, I agree. I don't need Marcus, to hold it in the corner when I've got Momo and Riley Johnson and Eber Lopez. Marcus is a very, very good player technically as well. He, is one of the original 4-out wingers. Would be great, but for me, I think the obvious choice is Dylan Kelsall. Like, it's so obvious to me. First of all, because of the way that this team's going to play, I think this team is going to generate serious power. This is not going to be sort of a cute team. This is going to be, we are going to just brute force our way through you, and with pinpoint passing and just brilliance. And Dylan is one of the players that is best adept to that, I think, because of his first touch, because of his ability to sort of spin both ways. You mentioned Chris Gordon's goal at the West Midlands Regional League. Well, he attributed that to a Dylan Kelsall style finish. I think that's becoming a bit of a trademark of his. I think he would be just ridiculous in this team. Him and Momo on the wings, playing back into either Riley or Eber, playing those triangles, would be so strong. And yeah, he's one of the best players in the country right now. one of the best players in the world right now. Scored some big goals for England at the Ep Nation Cup. But I honestly think by the end of that career, that'll be his worst tournament in an England shirt, because it's only gonna go up from here. Yeah, I feel like it speaks for itself, really. Dylan Kelsall.
I never imagined not being able to pick Dan McLellan. I thought that was going to be taken away from me, and then I was happy to have Dylan on my roster. A ridiculous talent, and as you've said, this is the bottom of his journey. This is the start, the base level, and the sky is the absolute limit. And we've said it so many times on this podcast. When the England team goes on their evolution, the prospect of a starting four that features Dan McLellan, Dylan Kelsall, Tyler Reeve, Ethan Fisher is ridiculous, to the point where you would say if they don't win a major honour, a European Championship, a World Cup, something's gone wrong, and Dylan will be central to that. So a fantastic pick, and that's a nice team, a really nice team.
Yeah, I was going back and forth between I penciled in Dylan first for your team. And then, you know what, I looked at it and went, you know what, you could really commit to the housery and just go for Mark. Like, I would honestly dread coming up against a team that had Momo and Marcus on the same. Like, I was like, you know, for the culture, you could do something really good here. So I put Momo and Marcus on the same team.
Ryan already mentioned that there's a slight language barrier in my team, and I do not need Marcus Harrison in there to make it any more complicated.
I know your tactic already. It's let's get one goal and let's park the bus. No one is getting round us.
No, I mean, to be fair, we have got. I honestly think I've got the most free scoring team as well. Like, I think I've absolutely smashed this. But yeah, no, we would be impenetrable once we'd got that first goal. If I wanted to, I could, score and then push Eber out wide and bring in a double pivot of Momo and Riley. That's something I could do. I think this squad is very, very flexible as well, which is really nice. Yeah, I think. Right, it did go across my mind slightly putting Marcus in there, but I just thought there's no way that I can pick him on current form over Dylan in a wide position.
Oh no, Dylan was always going to be the pick. Once I thought, you've definitely got too much housery almost, and the language barrier, as you mentioned. Dylan is just, you both said it. This is scary for the fact that this is his bare minimum, like from where he goes from here. And he's already just one of, if not the best winger in the Premier form at the minute, and will be starting for England for years to come. He'll be crucial to England in Argentina. He has that trademark finish, just going all the way around. The power he generates is ridiculous. So yeah, you've got I think you've got a more obvious starting four still. For me, but it's one heck of a starting four, and like I said,
because classification hampers you. And who's your starting four?
It's Momo, Riley, Eber, and Dylan.
Yeah, that's a
cool
one.
Cool. Sorry,
Ryan, you just scared the living daylight out of it. Oh my god, my heart just skipped a beat.
I was about to do a victory lap. Go, yeah, Charlie's. No, but I was like, no, your starting four is Eber, Riley, Momo, and Dylan. That was
yeah, and then Marco on for either Momo or Dylan, and then Ilan on for either Riley or Eber.
And talk to me about shape quickly.
It's a typical 4-out really. You've got. I'm still undecided whether I'd want to go Riley or Eber first pivot. I think I'd go Riley first pivot, Eber second pivot, then obviously Dylan and Momo on the wings, and then Ilian and Marco as my subs. I could also sometimes in games change to Momo first pivot, Riley second pivot, Eber on the wing. I'll leave that up to my coach, who we're going to pick next. I'll let them make the coolest shots on that one. But yeah, no, I think. I've given them the tools to win whatever tournament they want.
Yeah, now our squads are locked. And I said it earlier, I think in hindsight, the one thing I would have done is probably blocked in Eber earlier. I possibly could have got away with taking Toby later on. Not that I'm displeased with my squad at all. I'm just saying in hindsight, I think it would have maybe thrown a spanner in your works more, Charlie, than
Yeah, when you picked Toby instead of, I was so certain that, well, actually, I thought Valentino was going to be the name you said because you still had him on the table at that point. I thought you were going to go for him and then Ryan would go Eber. And when I knew that I was getting one of those two Argentinians, my face was an absolute picture. My jaw dropped to the floor. I was delighted because not that Toby's not an incredible player, but I just thought, well, that's me set. I'm done. I'm good.
So, who is the coach that is going to guide this team to glory?
For me, there are some great coaches in this sport. I'm going to be playing proper 4-out football, though. And there is, I think, one person who introduced it in England and then is now taking it across the pond to South America and is trying to get them playing it. And I think if you're trying to play a 4-out style, there is no more sort of knowledgeable and inventive and creative coach than Colin Gordon. So he's going to be coaching this team for me. He is just I think the mastermind behind the 4-out system largely. And I think he can install it into all of these players. He's worked with Dylan before. He's working with Eber right now. I think he'd love to coach Momo and Riley as well. So there's a little present to Colin Gordon. There's a nice team for you to coach.
A fantastic pick. He is the pioneer of the 4-out system. If you had not gone there, I would have gone there. Yeah, can deal with the personalities within that squad. And as you said, I think he would relish the opportunity to coach the likes of Momo and Riley.
Yeah, I can't really, there's nothing more I can really say is that the pioneered it, is just the one that when you think of 4-out and the system that England brought in years ago, Connolly just springs to mind, doesn't he? He's so passionate about the game as well, and you've given him a right gift there. And you say he's working with Eber. He knows, Momo for the years of trying to game plan how to stop him if you can. So yeah, I think it was going to be the first pick really of the coaches you've had. First pick of players and first pick of coaches.
Yeah, it's a nice squad indeed. So it progresses to my coach pick. For me, I'm torn between two, and I mean that's probably I have no hesitation talking you through that, but I won't take as long as I did for my sixth pick. So they're between David Verge and Marco Farazza for me. David Verge tried, tested, been there, done it, has innovated, has tried, has tested, and has 2 World Cups to show for it. And what I saw in Italy last year only reinforces my perception of him and the quality he has as a coach, because he innovated. He didn't stay static with what won him the World Cup in Sydney. He's looking to progress the team on and upskill others. And then Marco Farazza, if you speak to any of the Italian squad, they dedicate all of their success to him, his leadership, his quality. He was an amazing player, by the way, and it shocked me a great deal when he retired to take up coaching kind of as his full-time occupation within the sport. But what we saw in Italy was pretty remarkable. But I've got to go with David Verge for mine. Tried, tested, world class, and he'll be looking to add his 3rd World Cup to his trophy cabinet come October.
Yeah, if you didn't, I was going to. So yeah, I can't really turn down a coach who's won back-to-back World Cups, can you? Doesn't really bode well. I think Charlie agrees with me there as well.
Yeah, I fully agree. He's just installed that almost like robotic winning mentality into the French squad, and I think that's what you need. And that doesn't mean to say that the French will play without emotion. Quite the opposite. But they just control that so well and use that to their own advantage. The fact that he's got players like Momo and Brian, it will be very easy to just sort of say to them, "Well, do what you want." But he had them playing in a double pivot. That was, in the Euros final, he had Brian hardly touching the ball for long periods of the game, and that just shows the level of respect that these top players must have for him, that they're willing to trust in that vision. And yeah, he's delivered time after time. For me, it's just I don't know what his sort of the reason I went with Colin over him was because I don't know what his philosophy is. I don't think he has as clear of like a footballing ideology that you can see out, which I don't think is a bad thing, by the way. I don't subscribe to the notion that in modern football, every single manager has to have their own very clear way of playing. Not every manager has to be, a Pep Guardiola. That's just not how it works. You sometimes can, get by stealing little bits from everyone else's philosophy and just looking at the game and managing it in game. And I think, yeah, he's great for that. So David Verge is definitely up there, one of the better picks.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And just to confirm my starting four and subs bench, we've got Brian at the 1, anchoring from deep. I'm going to put Valentino in the centre, but he can have the freedom to roam. As I would be telling David to give Dan McLellan the keys to the kingdom, but he will be starting out wide, and then Lexi here on the other wing. And then if and when I need it, the raw potential of Ruben Walls and the unexpected quality of Giovanni Bernabé Capra. Greg, onto your coach to wrap things up.
Again, I've got the luxury of the last pick, which means I can now pick from wherever I want to go, which is great, but also gives me headaches because I've got so many options as to what I could do. I've also got the little bit of the cheat code of already having Chris Gordon, who in himself is a very good coach.
I considered him.
Could you have picked him?
Surely not.
Even though he's playing for my team.
That is a conflict of interest.
When you first picked Chris, I was going to chime in with a comment to say, I hope I can still have him as coach, but then I thought, no, you need degrees of separation. If he hadn't been picked within the draft, I would have picked him as coach.
Yeah, I would just strenuously object to him being able to manage your team. So I could talk through options now. I can go. Marco Ferrazza did pop into my mind for pure passion. That connection with Simone. I think I can go Tracy Mayer from America. Another passionate coach, could bring the set pieces. Yes, I know I didn't pick Pete Winslow, as you've already reminded me, but could bring the set pieces that I could then balance Chris and the 4 out and have the set pieces of Tracy Mayer and just blend those together. And then I'm looking at my squad and going, I've got a couple of French speakers, and although David Verge is gone, I could go Thierry Deschamps and have the assistant and make him a coach and be able to translate for French option to bring that French in. Or my other option is Adam Crowell. For me, Colin's long-time assistant, had experience managing in Italy with Ireland and was trying to implement 4 out there. So I'm doing the thing of stalling and explaining while I try and make my pick.
No, I like the nod to the protege, so to speak, in Thierry and Adam. And I will say that whilst it didn't ultimately go the way the Republic of Ireland would have wanted in Italy, I think it would be fairly unanimous to say that had the competition been played again or been a week longer, we would have seen that success be implemented. So from the start of the tournament to the last, Adam Crowell was probably one of the best coaches of the F Nations Cup.
Yeah, and I think I've swayed myself in. I like I said, nod to the proteges, but I want someone with that experience of managing at the top level. And so for me, I'm going to go with Tracy Mayer. I've got Chris Gordon for a 4 out coach on the sideline if he wants to sort of chime in at halftime with making adjustments. I like the passion of Tracy Mayer, and like I said, the set pieces, they are the US's key, and I think he can bring them in. Maybe I possibly could do with someone to translate some French. Quick Duolingo lesson, perhaps for either Chris or Tracy. But yeah, I'm quite happy locking him in, and I need to pick my starting forward, don't I?
You can borrow Giovanni to be a translator from my team.
Kind of. Thank you very much, Charlie.
Uh,
Your thoughts on my coach?
I think it makes your decision not to pick Pete Winslow even more mind-boggling now, but I think it is a good decision. I think he's one of the top coaches. I think he's got the US moving in the right direction. And I expect them to be really strong in Argentina. And I mean, you've got a lot of fire there, because that's one thing that I'd say your team is probably the least fiery of the lot in terms of got a lot of cool heads. You know, Chris, Toby, Florian, they're all very calm and quite understated, and that can be good. But you also do need that little bit of bite and aggression. And Ryan and I sat behind Tracy Mayer for the friendly at St George's Park, and where he got himself booked after like 10 minutes because he was just going absolutely mental. So he sort of compensates for the more mellow nature of your characters in the team, I think. So I think that's definitely the correct pick given the squad you've got.
Yeah, completely agree. I think he's a fantastic coach. Had the pleasure of sitting down and kind of interviewing him for this podcast before that friendly fixture. And to Charlie's point, I think he's got them going in the right direction. Their identity, their philosophy is largely weighted towards those set pieces. So I'm intrigued to see who he will judge to be the best taker within the squad. But no, a nice pick. So yeah, your starting four, if you would please.
Yeah, I've backed myself into a corner here with my versatility. I think I've got. So I'm going to go front to back. So I'm going to go Toby and Crowett and Aurelio Flat from the wings.
Can I just say, you said to begin with that he plays his best football in the centre.
I don't think I said he plays his best football in the centre.
With regards to his performances in Italy.
Yeah.
Okay,
But
no, sorry, I'm interrupting.
I think that's because he had to for Denmark, in my opinion. I think for Greenbank, we should play exceptionally well
True.
this season.
Good point.
And I think the dynamic of my team, I have no issue playing him out wide.
Nice.
Chris Gordon is obviously going to adorn the goalkeeper jersey, and I could play him at either first or second pivot. And the entire time I've been building this squad, I've been going, where do I want to play him? Do I want to play him first, or do I want to play him second? I'm going to play him first pivot for me. And behind him, I'm going to have Florian Lechontre.
That is fascinating.
I'm going to borrow a little bit of the Belgian, and I know the Belgian tactic. I have no issue with them swapping over.
No,
my point is that we can rotate. I mean, if Florian ends up taking the ball and going in the corner, Chris could play in the middle. Got Toby behind, Aurelio behind. I've got Simone Rezzato and David Downing coming on. We're fluid, boys. We're playing some fluid, full-out football.
I don't disagree, and I think that he did play a very good role there at the base of Belgium's formation. But his weakest position is in the centre, so I don't actually see there being much proficient rotation between Chris and Florian. And had I been in charge of your team, Chris would be at the keeper. I'd put Toby in the centre and shift Florian out wide.
Yeah, I've just drawn it out on my notepad and got to the same conclusion, Ryan. We're very aligned today. I think that's a crime against football, taking Chris Gordon and then not even playing him in goal. I mean, can I have him? Can we swap? I'll give you, you can have Ilan Genç.
We're trading.
Yeah.
I think purely based on where I had to go with adapting with my team, and I've seen Chris for West Brom this season more out of perhaps necessity than choice. Because obviously Freeland is obviously the first choice goalkeeper and second pivot, but he's been ridiculously good in the middle as first pivot. And I think if I'm trying to match first pivot for first pivot, going with you guys, you've got Charlie, you've got Ryan and Momo. Ryan, you've got Brian and Valentino. I'm not suggesting that any of my players can't match that, but I think I need that star player in the middle. He'll be wearing the goalkeeper jersey, but I just think, that's where I'm going with my team. That's my thought process.
No, I like it, and we'll put it to the public vote now to see who comes away with the ultimate crown. I'll have a think about how to best do that, but overall, I think that is a fantastic summary, a fantastic draft. I've got the itch now, so I'm already thinking about potential Premiership and Championship drafts in future episodes. But I think that probably brings the episode to a conclusion. Any final thoughts, boys?
Just vote Team Charlie is my final message. I think I've had an absolute worldie. I'm very pleased with my selections, and yeah. What I will say is if we're all in Argentina and all these people are in Argentina, if they'll lend us the court for a couple of hours, we could actually put on a three-way round robin tournament. We'll have to fly Ruben out, yes, which could be expensive, but if we could use the 2-on-1 podcast budget for that, then that's absolutely fine. And yeah, it'll be great. We could stream it, and do three-way commentary, and what a spectacle that would be, eh?
In fact, Ryan's already a player down.
Yeah. Ruben will be there. Ruben will be there. Anyway, a fascinating episode. Thank you, gents. There's nothing more to say, really. This will be out to a public vote, so let us know, and we'll put an Ultimate Champion out once it is known. A huge thank you to MK Battery for their continued support of the podcast. 50 episodes in, and here's to 50 more. A big thank you to Gregg.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Charlie.
A big thank you, Charlie.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Gregg.